So the Constitution actually gives us 8 tools. The Constitution gives us 8 tools in order to conquer fascism. This is how the left can oppose fascism and tyranny, and how Americans can conquer fascism using the American Constitution. So you have 8 tools. You got enumerated powers. You got the 3 branches of government. You got federalism. You got the Bill of Rights. You got constitutionalism, the rule of law, elections, and bicameralism. So to me, it seems like there's 3 main ways that you can conquer fascism. With communism, with anti-fascism, or with classical liberalism. Before we throw classical liberalism out, before we just chuck out the Constitution, let's actually try to use it. Communism, anti-fascism, classical liberalism. Classical liberalism, FDR defeated fascism in World War II from the outside. Communist Stalin defeated fascism from the outside. But the German communists couldn't stop the German Nazis from the inside. So to me, neoliberalism is out. The shitlibs, we can't do what the shitlibs think is best. Only communism, anti-fascism, and classical liberalism are the 3 ways to defeat fascism. What is classical liberalism? Well, you're tied to market forces, right? So you have a capitalist economy and you have a democratic republic, which is tied to the Constitution. So let's expand on the 8 constitutional tools for the righteous Americans to fight back in the next 4 years against fascist autocracy, totalitarian tyranny, and authoritarian dictatorship. So we got enumerated powers, 3 branches of government, federalism, Bill of Rights, constitutionalism, the rule of law, elections, and bicameralism. What am I talking about? Well, bicameralism is you got 2 houses. You have the senators and then you have the representatives. All those are supposed to represent the American people. You got 3 branches of government, right? But within the legislative branch, there's 2 houses. Every citizen has a single representative in the House of Representatives for the respective district, plus their 2 senators. Both houses have to be on board with any legislation which gets passed. The senators, the representatives. So for instance, those who live in the 4th Congressional District of Utah, this is your bulwark against tyranny. Your representative is Clarence Burgess Owens, and your 2 senators is Mitt Romney and Mike Lee. So in order to, let's say, have martial law to throw all of the brown-eyed people in jail. If you're going to throw every brown-eyed person in jail, well, you're going to have to get Mitt Romney on board and Mike Lee and Clarence Burgess Owens. Let's presume that they would stand up to just going around arresting any brown-eyed person. So you got bicameralism. You also got 3 branches of government. There's 3 branches, right? You don't just have 3 branches in the federal government, but the state government as well. Executive, legislative, judicial. So if the president wants to get his Deport the Dreamers martial law passed, he'll have to pass the House and the Senate, and it'll have to be approved by the Supreme Court. And then if you move on to Mike Johnston's Denver, in order to get the Deport the Dreamers martial law program going in Denver, well, the president's going to have to bypass Colorado's governor, Colorado's House and Senate, and Colorado's Supreme Court, because the states have their own laws, and the states have their 3 branches of government as well. And then Denver is a home rule city. So Denver has its own political structure as well. They got 3 branches of government. They got their own city, state, nation going on. So that's another constitution. That's another 3 branches and more officers coming out of Denver. So in order to get Deport the Dreamers going on in Denver, you got to pass the 3 branches in Colorado and the 3 branches in Denver. Everybody's got to be on board with this or turn a blind eye and be complicit. When you're neutral during situations of injustice, then you have chosen the side of the criminals. You have chosen the side of the oppressors. You've endorsed it. The only thing that we need in order for evil to persist is for good people to do nothing. So in order to deport the dreamers out of Denver, you got to have 3 branches of government in the feds saying nothing. The states, 3 branches of government saying nothing or opposing it. Oppose it. Mitt Romney, Mike Lee, Clarence Burgess Owens, and all the rest of you got 435 representatives. And 100 senators. So that's 9 branches of government that the president's going to have to just steamroll. He's just going to have to run over all those 3 branches of government. Now, not only do we have 3 branches of government, but you got the enumerated powers. What are the enumerated powers? Well, the president has some powers specifically spelled out in the Constitution, and then Congress has a whole bunch more. The Supreme Court's got some powers as well, and then the rest of the powers are left to the states, and then respectively to we the people. Most of the internal mechanisms of government is run by the states and local districts, which again is the states. Take a look at South Korea. So the president instituted martial law in South Korea. He just woke up one night, had a bad tummy ache, and then said, I'm declaring martial law. Now, if you have an emergency, I suppose you may have a right or you may have a power to institute martial law. So Papua New Guinea or Grenada, say Canada tries to invade us, then declare emergency. During hurricanes and blizzards, declare an emergency. If there's an alien invasion, declare emergency. But once that emergency is over, once that blizzard lifts up, once Canada has stopped invading us, then the emergency is over. That means martial law is over too. In South Korea, the president declares martial law, and he sent his troops into parliament, and he started kicking out all the congressmen. All their Congress is called parliament, so he's sent in troops to occupy. He sent in troops to invade and occupy and attack parliament. They were breaking windows in parliament. But the members of parliament pushed on through. They got inside the building. They barricaded the doors. Then they passed a vote. 190 to 0. 190 to 0. Every single member of those in parliament voted against the martial law. And as soon as they voted against the martial law, guess what happened to the government's troops? They all walked out. They all walked out. That's how classical liberalism works. Even the president's own political party opposed the martial law. Even his inner circle opposed the martial law. So our democratic Republican institutions can continue to function just so long as we read the Constitution, know our powers, know where the powers are located, know where those centers of powers are, and we flex those constitutional powers. So the enumerated powers, the president's got some power. The president has some power. The president of America is the commander-in-chief of the military powers, land and sea and the air. That also includes the militia. But the state also can send the militia out, which we call that the National Guard today. But that's more of a state militia now, isn't it? I'm not for sure where the People's Militia is. Do we have a People's Rainbow Militia? Do we have a Rainbow Coalition Militia? So the president is the commander-in-chief. The president has the power to pardon. The president has the power to make department heads and secretaries write up a report about their departments. The president, when the Senate recesses, can fill all vacant positions. Now the president has to give a State of the Union. And the president, for high crimes and misdemeanors and bribes and treason, the president can be impeached and convicted to be removed from office. If the president vetoes the legislation, then get 2/3 of the House to override the president. And then what the Congress says is what the law is. Now the Congress has a shit ton of power. Congress has the bulk of the power. If you look at the organization of America's Constitution, Article 2 is the presidency, Article 3 is the judicial branch, Article 1, the legislative branch. the senators, and the representatives. So the Congress has the power to declare war, to grant letters of marque and reprisal, to declare war. We can't go to war unless Congress declares it. But they've been getting past that, so Congress needs to retake their war powers back. Congress has the power to establish post roads and post offices. The Congress can call forth the militia to suppress insurrections and repel invasions. The Congress are the ones who chooses the officers for the militia. The Congress are the ones who raises and supports the armies. The Congress makes the rules for the land and sea and air military powers. The Congress has the power to tax, the power to borrow money. The Congress has the power to coin money, the power to regulate commerce. Congress has the power to regulate commerce, to define the courts lower than the Supreme Court, to build government buildings, and then to pass all the laws that are necessary and proper in order to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, to protect our liberties, to provide for the common defense, to do all the 6 end objects, to perfect the union of the preamble. Not only does Congress have all the powers to pass all the laws that are necessary and proper, but all other powers. All other powers that they have. Let's read that, because for our government to function, this is a very expansive clause. Congress has the power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers. So all the powers I just listed, all the powers in the Constitution, and then some, in the government of the United States or any department or officer thereof. So not only do they have the power to pass the laws for the powers just named, but any of the other powers that are necessary to uphold the Constitution and to keep our government functioning. The president can't sign a treaty, nor can he appoint an ambassador unless he gets the consent of the Senate. So we have 3 branches of government. And then the Supreme Court will have to endorse it and say it's not constitutional. Not unconstitutional. So they have judicial review. So if there's a bill that's passed that's unconstitutional, the Supreme Court can knock it down. Not only America's, but also the states. The 10th Amendment says whatever powers the state and federal governments don't have, we the people have that power. Such as running a people's rainbow militia. Now we got the Bill of Rights. You have a whole bunch of individual freedoms. Every single American, all 333 million Americans have individual freedoms and rights. The right to speak, the right to pray, the right to petition, the right to peacefully assemble, the right to write your congressman, the right to write a letter to the editor, to the press, freedom of the press. We got the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment, Eighth, Ninth. There's more freedoms past that in the 27 amendments, plus there's freedoms in the body of the Constitution. And I bet you that preamble, you could probably get some freedoms, sift some freedoms out from there too. So the president can't take away our individual freedoms. So let's presume that you have a dictator of America who attempts to get the soldiers to stay in our homes, to occupy our homes, to quarter our homes, to fuck our wives, to steal our turkeys, to drink our sweet tea, to use our electricity and our internet and our plumbing, to shit in our toilets. If the dictator of America wants to quarter soldiers in our own homes, we have a right to our own homes. That's the Third Amendment. And so therefore, as Americans, we got to stand up for the Third Amendment. We must be men. We must be women. We must be strong and formidable men and women. We need to have a backbone. And we need to oppose the quartering of soldiers in American homes by any means necessary. Why? Because it's the law. And it's not just the law, but it's constitutional law, as well as natural law, rational law. If you try to quarter soldiers in our homes, that's breaking the Third Amendment. We didn't like standing armies because standing armies, if there's no war to go fight overseas, then they're turned against us. Now we have elections. What happens in elections? Well, the person with the more votes wins. So in 2 years, the House is going to flip. Right now, the conservatives have every branch of government. So now they got to govern. They actually have to govern. They can't just sit there and bellyache off to the side. In 2 years, the House is going to flip. That's what it's been historically. It's done it every single time. And it makes sense if you think about it. The House flips because people are sick of the ruling class, the ruling people. The economy hasn't got better. Nothing has changed. You're still killing Palestinians. You still got homeless on the street. No war on poverty. No universal basic income. No ranked choice voting. You don't have fair elections. You don't have enough money for your groceries. So when you have the ruling class that has all the branches of government, the president wins. And so for the next 2 years, hang on tight. But in the next 2 years, you're going to see a lot of opposition. You're going to see more people that want to run for Congress. And they'll win. Because in general, folks don't want tyranny. They want a better conversation. And so in 2 years, the House is going to flip. Will it flip to Democrats? I don't know. Maybe it'll go to the People's Party. Maybe it'll be Green. Maybe it'll be Libertarians. Maybe it'll be a bunch of Federalists who understand the Constitution. Even the GOP will get sick of their tyrannical bullshit. They'll say, well, shit, where's all the love? Where's the community? Where's the progress? Where's the change that we need? Who wants to just be old and stagnant and just stink up the place? Where is the heart and soul? Whither has the heart and soul of America gone? That's what the GOP will be screaming in 2 years. In 2 years, hopefully for the world, we'll see the most radical bunch of leftists in Congress that we've ever seen. And so we're going to have a new agenda. We're going to sing ourselves a new song. We're going to see ourselves a brand new leftist. Not the neoliberals, not the shit libs, but classical liberals, socialists, anti-fascist. Those who believe in individual freedoms, those who believe in the Constitution. You're tied to market forces, but we have a democratic republic. And those classical liberals will declare war on poverty, build homes for the homeless, pass universal basic income, and make poverty a thing of yesterday. How come in the richest country in the world, we got people that don't even have a home on the streets? My God, there's people that's never even moved. They had the same damn bed. They had the same, everything's the same. So you get somebody nice and comfortable, you get them inside a nice little house that they could call them their own. They become good citizens. They get jobs. They can protect their wealth. They can protect themselves and their loved ones. Shelter is that you need. If you don't have food or water or shelter, go get food, water, and shelter. Especially in wintertime. You expect people to just stay outside, sleep on the bench, and freeze to death? Well, that shit's happened in America. It happened in Cincinnati several years ago. It happens all the time. And in 4 years, Donald will have to step down. He's term limited to just 2 terms. The 22nd Amendment. The president is term limited. This is the second term. He's only got 4 years to do his damage. If Donald attempts to stay in the White House in 2028, then we'll have to be ready. And we'll have to be organized for a civil war. We can't just let America go down the tubes for some narcissistic, egotistical piece of shit that don't want to get out of the emperor's throne. Not on our watch. We'll have to organize ourselves some people's militia. We can't just let dictators fucking take over every fucking thing. The rule of law. Nobody's allowed to break the law. The law applies to each and every person. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight, black or white, or rich or poor. Even our freedoms are the law. So the dictator can't murder, he can't steal, he can't assault, and he can't rape. The dictator also can't do high crimes and misdemeanors. The dictator can't take bribes or emoluments. The dictator also cannot commit treason. What was the King of France's mistake? Well, he employed foreign troops. He wasn't just going to take his own troops to oppress France, but he was going to get a bunch of foreign troops to oppress France. So if the dictator contracts out to Botswana or Italy or Russia or Israel in order to oppress us, then that is treason. That is treason. That's reason to impeach, and that's reason to kick that dictator, totalitarian, autocratic, fascist son of a bitch to the curb. The rule of law says nobody can break the law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's below the law. The rule of law is we don't have a nation of men, but a nation of laws. Absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the dictator can't do those crimes, or else he can be charged with a crime. So we can't let our president go around raping people. We can't have him shoplifting. It makes no sense. You're getting a paycheck. Why would you shoplift? How embarrassing would that be for America to have a president who's going around shoplifting and raping and assaulting and murdering Americans on Fifth Avenue? Maiming and torturing and assaulting. No, you can't commit crimes, dictator. Federalism. So not only do we have federal laws and officers, but we got state laws and state officers. So not only can the president not commit crimes by federal law, you can't infringe upon the freedoms of the Constitution, nor can you injure other people. But the federal government most especially cannot commit crimes in the states. State officers, especially ones that are courageous enough to arrest the rich and powerful, they can stop a president from raping and shoplifting within their own borders. So we got a lot of tools in order to combat autocracy and totalitarianism, where the state officers are courageous enough to make an arrest for an assault, or for murder, or for rape, or for shoplifting, or for torturing, or maiming, or passing a don't stop the dreamers martial law, or deport the dreamers martial law. If it goes against state law, if it goes against the state government, or the local government where there's home rule, such as Denver and 100 cities in Colorado has home rule, including Colorado Springs and Pueblo. And you can't change the government in Pueblo unless you have a constitutional convention. We should seriously think about having a constitutional revolution. We've had a lot of electoral revolutions. FDR called elections revolutions. So whereas the federal government organizes in arms and disciplines the militia, or they're supposed to, per the Constitution, the state picks the officers of the militia, and the state also orders the militia into service. So they both get to share the power of the militia. You nationalize the National Guard. Okay, well, I just statified it. And then if the National Guard isn't a people's militia, and there is no people's militia, then we need to get ourselves a people's Rainbow Coalition militia. A Fred Hampton militia. So it's great. It's great that the American Constitution was designed to stop tyranny. We didn't want King George III coming around being like Gilgamesh and raping our wives before we even got to. We don't need Gilgameshes. We don't need Mussolinis. We don't need Totos. You need a king to tell you to obey? You're that big of a piece of shit that if you don't have a king telling you to fucking obey? So, learn your Constitution, America. Read your constitutions. Talk about your constitution. Celebrate your constitutions. The state has a constitution. America has a constitution. The state have bills of rights, and America's got bills of rights. When you combine the freedoms of the state and the freedoms of the federal government, that's your entire bushel of freedoms. And if you don't get civil freedoms, well, then you got to go to natural law. And in natural law, you got a right to everything and everybody all the time. Hobbes says it'll turn out to be a war of all against all, and that our lives will be poor and solitary, nasty, brutish, and short. So the U.S. Constitution was designed to stop tyranny through these 8 measures: enumerated powers, bicameralism, federalism, Bill of Rights, Constitution, elections, the rule of law, and the 3 branches of government. And I'm going to just conclude this with a quote by Frederick Douglass. What did Frederick Douglass say when it came to the Constitution, when it came to the Dred Scott decision? Frederick Douglass said this, and I quote, "In conclusion, let me say, all I ask of the American people is this, that they live up to their Constitution, adopt the Constitution's principles, imbibe the spirit of the Constitution, and enforce the provisions of the Constitution. When this is done, then the wounds of my bleeding people will be healed." When Americans imbibe the spirit of the Constitution and enforces the provisions of the Constitution, then the wounds of my bleeding people will be healed. How exciting. How exciting is classical liberalism? And if that doesn't work, then we also have socialism, communism, socialism/communism, and of course anti-fascism, which is just self-defense. Somebody wants to say, do this or violence will happen to you, you say, fuck you. Trying to make me do it. And see if violence isn't a two-way street, motherfuckers.